updating their privacy and getting everything going. But to start, I do want to thank the Washington State Economic, SWEDA, the Southeastern Washington Economic Development Association, for helping to promote and sponsor today's event, along with the Small Business Development Center and the city for promoting. This is a profile in resiliency, how small businesses kind of figure out and navigate how to get through COVID, which we're all in this together. It's we're all learning together. But yeah, today we have Jackie with us today. I'll allow her to introduce herself because there's kind of a journey that you've taken to get to where you are.
Yeah, even pre-COVID, yes.
Yeah.
So my name is Jackie. I am the owner and director of Building Blocks Child Care Center. Building Blocks has been in business since 1998. I started with the company in 2002 as a volunteer, a student volunteer while I was going to WSU, and then just kind of worked my way up as a support staff and became a lead teacher after graduation, and then got into admin and took over ownership in 2015. We're licensed for 84 children at a time. When I took over ownership, we had about 130 kids enrolled, not all there at the same time, but enrolled, and about 40 employees. And we're not there anymore.
Wow. So that's incredible. That's incredible. What made you stay in the Palouse area? Like what drew you here?
Oh, like everyone else that graduates from WSU, you just expect to move back where you came from. I grew up on the west side, Whidbey Island, but I met my husband and he had a solid job here, and I loved what I did at Building Blocks, and it wasn't really until we had kids, our daughter, did we figure out that Pullman was the place for us. There's just a different community feel that you get when you get integrated as a family versus, just being in limbo from graduation and this job. So yeah, we love Pullman.
I gotcha. Sorry, when you said the west side, you also mentioned an island?
Yeah, Whidbey Island.
Oh, Whidbey. Okay. Yeah. I grew up on Bainbridge, so it's...
Oh, fellow Islander.
Yeah. Well, and every time I hear someone say, oh yeah, we grew up on the island. Well, okay, there's a lot of islands, but I know that people who live there, that's the mentality. That's what they say and talk and with.
You live on the rock was the slogan. Yeah. Shop the rock.
Shop. I love it. So you had children, you kind of stayed. And so then what drove you to be an entrepreneur and own a business? Because that's always scary.
Yeah, well, I never thought that my career path would take me there, but I totally get it. With the last owner, this type of business, it's not something that you take lightly. You service the community, and just that commitment that you feel to servicing the families of the Palouse. I think that's what drove me there. Becoming a business owner and entrepreneur has not been easy. I've had to do a lot of self-reflection. So that's still a work in progress.
I get you.
Years later, yeah.
And so then how long have you been the owner of Building Blocks before COVID? You might have said it, but just to be clear.
Yeah, since 2015, I took over ownership.
Okay. So as reports of COVID were rising, was it on your radar coming into 2020 or?
It was, because we have a lot of international families. So a lot of traveling to China and out of the country. And at first, when they were coming to me with these concerns, we didn't know a lot about COVID. So yeah. I probably wasn't as empathetic as I should have been, because we didn't really know about this virus, but they were voicing their concerns and talking to their employers about working from home and already quarantining before it was even an issue here. So that was back in December. And it just kept evolving, because we also had a family that was going to start, and her family was from Italy. And so it just kind of, you knew about it, but it wasn't quite there. And then
Yeah.
when it hit in March, it was just, it really hit fast.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it hits, and then we have a few of these webinars lined up for profiles. Um, what were what was it like being a essential business going into COVID? I we were technically an essential business. It's, to me, that's a little gray, a little bit fuzzy for us.
Yeah.
And so we tried to navigate that. It was wonky. It was weird. What was that experience like for you?
It was fairly isolating because when they talk about essential businesses and they talk about frontline workers, childcare providers were never put in that same box. It was always medical
Mm,
providers, grocery store clerks, things like that, the things that you needed to survive. Um, and we weren't quite put in that box because I guess we're not needed for survival, but we sure are needed to take care of these children for those frontline workers.
right.
So it was just a lot of watching every press conference from the governor to see where we fit into that. And we were just given just a little piece of information. Childcare is essential. They need to stay open. And that was the guidance. So a lot of
Wow.
us in the industry just kind of we felt lonely. We felt just glossed over and not, yeah, it was pretty lonely. So we just kind of had to fend for ourselves. We knew we had to stay open, waited for CDC guidelines, waited for the health department guidelines, and just kind of ran from there.
Yeah, yeah. So how so pre-COVID and now in COVID, what's staff like? What's how are the kids numbers? Has it gotten difficult to more difficult to work with children with COVID and trying to, like, okay, everybody wash your hands even more than we already tell you to, please.
Yeah. I feel like right now we're sitting pretty well.
Okay.
Um, Prior to COVID, we were dealing with things already. The childcare industry was really affected by the implementation of Initiative 1433. The additional payroll costs that were passed with um,
Yeah.
family medical leave and mandatory sick leave, the exponential increase in minimum wage. So that affected us first and foremost, and we were
Hmm.
already downsizing
Oh
from
wow.
that. And then DCYF, the government regulation for childcare centers, they implemented stricter WAC codes, and so those regulations are more costly. So there was a lot of downsizing prior to COVID. As far as keeping up with the guidelines with sanitation and things like that was pretty easy because we already
Hmm.
had pretty strict guidelines for health and sanitation measures. And it was just a matter of, extra temperature checks throughout the day, making sure those that were
Yeah.
required were wearing masks. But enrollment within COVID, enrollment decreased a lot. So we were running at about 25 to 30%. And that
Oh
was
wow.
that was tough. Yeah.
Okay. And so then is there a government guideline on the maximum number of students you can have with the building size, or just is there ratios? What does that look like?
Yeah, so DCYF already has regulations for enrollment size. It is based off of the square footage of your building. So sometimes people could be licensed for a little bit more, but generally the square footage of buildings keeps us all pretty much the same. But with COVID, it was just across the board, no more than 10 bodies in a classroom, and that included
Oh
teachers.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. 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 So with that, is there hints that you might want to get a bigger facility, or are you okay with the 75-80% range that you're operating at right now?
Yeah, I'm loving the 75% range because I feel like I told you before we had about 40 employees. Our full-time
Hmm.
employees haven't really changed, but we did have a lot of part-time employees, and a lot of them were WSU students. And
Okay.
decreasing the amount of part-timers that we have, I just feel like I have a better relationship with my teachers. It's more manageable. Um, so I think that's the most important. If I have a strong team and we're cultivating a teamwork environment, that 75% really helps to facilitate that. And the same with parents. Sometimes you get so many parents as you get older, it's hard to remember names and faces. And when I was younger, I thought I could memorize everybody's name and what they did and who they were. And as I get
Yep.
older, that's not quite a skill. So
No, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's hard. I run into people and like, oh, hey, it was so good to see you.
where do I know you from?
It's Pullman. There's only so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It is really hard, especially in COVID. People have grown beards or shaved off beards, or maybe they've gotten a haircut, maybe they haven't yet.
Yeah.
And there's just sometimes for me it's context of where I always see them and what they're always wearing.
And then you
Um,
feel awkward because you're staring a little bit harder. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. And so with the kids, what's the requirements on masks? How have the kids responding to masks?
So requirements for mask is 5 years and up is
Oh,
required.
okay.
Heavily recommended for 2 year, between 2 and 4. Our pre-kindergartners who fall in that 5 year age range, they've been doing great. We had the executive director from Bishop Place, Lori Brown, come and educate the children on mask wearing and why it's important.
Wow.
And so they've been great. That age group has been great. It's hit or miss with the 3 and 4 year olds. But, oh, sorry, I thought I turned that off. But yeah, the masks have not been an issue.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I've gotten my kid just turned 3. But as a 2-year-old, I was like, okay, let's do gummies and a mask. Okay, what's the deal? Treat and mask.
Yeah.
Um, so in the stores we've been pretty good, but I wasn't sure for when you have 20 or 30 kids, if and they're all running around trying to keep masks on, what that would
Hmm.
look like.
Yeah. Yeah. A little hard for the younger kids, but it's been manageable, and we've stayed fairly healthy. So
Yeah, yeah. And so with that, has there been government assistance that you guys have applied for? What does that scene look like? Has there been anything special for essential businesses, or just kind of what does that look like?
yeah, so we definitely used the PPP loan,
Hmm.
and that was a lifesaver. I was able to guarantee employment for all my full-time employees,
Wow.
and any income that we did bring in just went to, additional overhead costs. Um, and then DCYF, they provided a loan, or not a loan, a grant for childcare providers, and it was based off of your license capacity. So we
Wow.
were able to get about 11,000 from them, so that was great. Um, and then I applied for the SWEDA grant, and I think I got that. I signed a contract and sent that in, and so
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Okay. And then so you mentioned that you're at kind of 75, 80% capacity. Has your business model shifted at all? Like I know some of our clients have been doing a lot more instead of in-person workshops, they're doing courses, or I know restaurants are like, okay, they're all going to doing the takeout and delivery, and that's changed them quite a bit. What has there been any types of those shifts where it's the same service, but we're just repackaging it or pivoting?
Um, so we did a lot of restructure prior to COVID,
Mm,
because of, Initiative 1433, which I mentioned.
yeah.
We used to not be so flexible in what we offered in terms of scheduling, but we came out with a type of sliding scale so that we could provide some kind of service that fit families' different schedule needs, and financial needs. So that was something we already did. In the thick of COVID, we did scale back our business hours for a bit.
Okay.
So rather than opening at 7:30, we opened at 8:30, just because we had less staff, and that's how we were able to keep everybody working their full-time hours. But other than that, no, we did offer distance learning in the beginning. And so weekly teachers would put together packets for parents that still wanted to pay for their spot,
Gotcha.
but not necessarily bring in their kids. So they created those take-home packets for them, and we followed up with our Facebook group, but not, we didn't have to get too creative like other businesses or retail businesses.
I gotcha. I like the packets idea. That's really neat. That's really neat.
Yeah.
And so in working with all those parents, has communication increased in frequency? Are you guys using more methods of reaching out to them?
Yeah.
How's that scaled?
So I've always been an over communicator. I know I like my expectations set. I don't like surprises. So I like to set that for my clients as well. But yeah, we've increased different platforms for communication. So I briefly mentioned the Facebook group. So we have a Facebook group for parents that are enrolled and the teachers that are employed. So it's just a platform for us to share what's going on. My hope is that parents, would post as well, so that they feel like they have their own little community, but that hasn't quite happened yet.
That's hard.
And then we do have this, I decided to move. We were very old school. When parents would sign in, it was paper. When they wanted to know what their kids were doing throughout the day, again, paper. So I did purchase a new parent communication app and billing app called ProCare. And so parents are able to communicate with teachers in real time and get pictures of their kids real time, get reports of naps and meals and things like that real time. So I know other centers have been doing that for a while. We just got on board with that. So that's something that we implemented during COVID.
Yeah. And have parents responded pretty positively to that?
Yeah, they love it, especially the billing part where they get their bill and they can just press pay rather than writing checks. They love it.
Awesome. Okay, so then there's also been cash flow things that have improved and increased, and gotcha. That's awesome. Sometimes software doesn't always fix as many problems as we want it to. So that's awesome. You guys are implementing new systems that are really working, and I'm sure, of course, getting that return on investment with it. And so you guys never closed.
Correct.
And so you never had to do phasal reopenings at all. You didn't have to. You guys were just steady.
Yeah.
Do you feel with more strict guidelines, like things have been? I'm trying to figure out how to best phrase this. Just a little bit smoother in terms of the drop-offs and pickups and the way the kids are interacting. Like, not that we always wanted to be like super rigid, but a little bit more structure has helped. Like, what was that experience been like?
Yeah. So drop off, pickup, those types of things. We're just asking for the least amount of in-person interaction. So we're asking one parent per child to come pick up and drop off. We're asking for brief drop-offs and pickups. And that has worked in our favor because when you have children that are staggered with their drop-offs, but we have the schedule that we're trying to follow, any type of disruption is going to change the dynamics of what's going on right now. So it's been nice that they've been brief so that those interruptions have been brief. So that's been nice. Sometimes I would have teachers not out of the building until 6 o'clock because parents are lingering around and talking
Oh,
when
wow.
we close at 5:30. So that hasn't been an issue. Yeah, it just seems to be more efficient.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and we're communicating with them in different ways that it doesn't require a whole lot of in-person interaction, which we do miss, but
Hmm. Hmm.
classrooms seem to be the just managing a lot better.
I get you. I get you. That makes a lot of sense. I'm I'm just a little bit grateful and blessed. My parents are high risk, and since COVID started, I don't think my kid has been sick in like 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, because I know there's more cleaning. I know that, like you said, like people aren't lingering as long, and there's
Yeah.
there's less interactions like that. I'm like, This is amazing."
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and our illness policy is a little stricter too,
hmm.
because we still don't know a whole lot about the virus. And in the past, if someone got a cold, if they didn't have a fever, they could come back. And that's not the case anymore. It's they have to
Hmm.
be symptom free for 24 hours in additional 10 days from the start of the symptoms,
Yep.
or get a note from their doctor saying that it's not COVID related. So there's a lot more work into having kids come back to school. So we're able to mitigate the spread of illness, rather than it running rampant, which childcare is
Yeah.
known for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And so, um, taking a little bit of a different shift, um, we talked about the government assistance and the grants that have been integral for moving things forward. Um, how about lease agreements or utilities? Have you been able to negotiate with them or ask, hey, can we not pay for a month, or what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even try to negotiate any of those things because the the grants and the loan that we got really were able to help with the bigger part of operations costs, which is
Hmm.
our labor
Hmm.
costs with employees. So as long
Yeah.
as they were taken care of, the income that we were getting in was going to go towards sustaining all those fixed costs and other operational costs. We also rent through Bishop Place, and um,
Okay.
they're just they're going through their own thing trying to keep their residents safe and protected, and it was just one last thing I wanted to have to put on their plate. So if we had the funds coming in, uh, typically to be able to handle that, and the government help I was able to use for my employees, we sat pretty well. I just wanted to continue as normal, keep something normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, how would you say you and your family have been kind of personally coping and working through this? Like, how have you been?
Yeah. Well, I think um, so. Being a business owner, as we've discussed
Yeah.
in general, is pretty lonely. It's isolating,
Hmm.
and add the extra layer of being an employer, where your job really is to take care of so many other people and their needs and their wants. You tend to forget to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And being in the service industry, a lot of I don't think people talk a lot about what that brings, like compounding PTSD or
Hmm.
compassion fatigue, or I mean, we can give secondary stress um, disorder, and yeah, it's been stressful, and so I needed a little extra help.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do see a counselor, and I am on medication. I just wanted to make sure that the extra stressors that were being brought in by COVID and just being a business owner in general didn't impact the relationship that I had with my kids and my husband. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you feel like you guys have been able to have closer family relations with everything happening? What
yeah.
has COVID changed those dynamics quite a bit?
Yeah, I think that's been a blessing from COVID, is that we have been forced to slow down,
Hmm.
and to have more time together and not rushing from this activity and this PTA meeting and this training, that we have been um, we have been spending more time together, and that has been nice, especially when I have an 11-year-old, a sixth grader, a girl, and that comes with some challenges. It's nice to be able to be there for her when, she's going through these changes,
Hmm. Yeah.
emotionally and physically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
Oh, she'll probably kill me for saying that. My goodness, that's
Ah. Um, and so then with that, do you feel like your relationships with your employees have been a little bit tighter? Like, has there been additional support that's
yeah.
been provided, or how's that been?
So I talked about a little bit about cultivating that teamwork environment.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I know how important it is for me to take care of our mental health, and just starting the day week with a positive mindset. So we kind of every Monday, or throughout the week, I encourage teachers to share gratitude for one
Mm-hmm.
another, and then every Monday I'll share that with them. So times are hard, but what are some good things that are coming from these tough times? So just recognizing those things, focusing on reflection, making sure that I'm still providing training. I've been a little, because of COVID, I haven't been in the classrooms as much,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I'd like to get back to that, to offer more support just from observation and things like that. But yeah, I feel like we've definitely gotten more tight, closer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And with that, it sounds like you guys have just been, and a lot of it's just rocking it, um, with having the blessings of family, being able to kind of figure out your business model to where like really narrow down where you like to be,
Yeah.
have tighter relationships with your employees. Um, I know it is hard to, because your employees and your employees' families all rely on you, and so to have that weight is hard.
Hmm.
Um, but everything has been um, sustained and well done. What advice would you have to other small businesses that might be in the area where, or suggestions or things that just, oh man, this really helped me?
Yeah. I would say just keeping an open mind. COVID has forced me to be more creative, uh, and pursue other avenues as well, just to, so I decided to start working on my MBA, and
Oh wow.
just because in reflection, what's going to make me a better leader, what's going to make me a better business owner,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
and so I decided to pursue my MBA because I really want to work on that leadership piece. So just things like, just start thinking outside of the box and being okay with that, would be my advice. And it seems like a lot of local businesses have done that. um, but yeah, just keeping an open mind, and being creative, and not sticking yourself in a box, and really reaching out to other businesses too.
Really?
um, I think having a relationship with other businesses and just being able to air your grievances or get advice, just so you don't feel alone, just helps with you mentally. Because as we mentioned, being a business owner is isolating. So
Yeah,
if you can find your community and support, that's gonna help you move forward.
absolutely. What in sorry, there's a siren outside.
I
I'm
know, I
sure
hear it.
people are probably hearing. Um, were there any gaps or shortcomings that you noticed during COVID that you guys are enhancing in your business model?
That's a good question. I don't think anything COVID related. I think that was more, I think we were already getting there,
Hmm.
prior with, um, just some of the mandatory labor costs. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I think that, I think that helped us be ready, for what COVID would bring.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And then, where are you pursuing the MBA from?
Western Governors University. It's nice because it's self-paced and online, and
Ooh.
um, My advisor checks in with me every week.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good. What, sorry, I just kind of have a couple cleanup questions.
Yeah.
You kept mentioning DYCYF
Oh,
or
DCYF. Yeah. Department of Children. Hold on. D is Department, Children, Youth, and Families. So it
Youth and
used to be
Families.
the Department of Early Learning. So that was our government entity that like licensing, just all the
Mhm.
regulations. Yeah, that's what DCYF is.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so then is there additional monthly or yearly training that you and your teams have to do, and what's involved with that licensing part?
So they come out every year and just do kind of a compliance check to make sure that we're meeting all licensing requirements and
Hmm.
WAC codes. Teachers are required to have at least 10 hours of ongoing training per year.
Okay.
But some of the requirements that they implemented in 2019 that has been hard for providers in general and has closed down a lot of in-home providers is their educational requirements. So that is something that was implemented with the new WAC code. So like lead teachers are supposed to have a specific amount of education, and the same with assistant leads. And
Mm.
yeah, so that was tough. I would say more for in-home providers because their intent to provide care for children is different than say a center-based facility where we're more of an early learning facility, and that's how we run anyway. But
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
that just wants to take care of kids because they can take care of their own kids and still have an income, that was kind of a blow. They never expected that they'd have to go back to school and get their degree in early childhood education just to watch, 5 other kids while raising their own.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what is there a deadline for that? Like, does that start now or is that in a couple years? Like what does that look like?
So for anyone that was already within the or employed by a center during the time of implementation in 2019, they have 5 years. So it's a generous amount of time to get their degree. And then the state also has something called Early Achievers, which is a quality rating improvement system. And
Mm.
any center that participates in that and rated through that, teachers are able to have a scholarship to get that education. So 5 years, or 5 years upon hire. So if I hired anyone
Oh,
after that implementation, they have 5 years to receive that degree or
oh
short
wow.
certificate, whatever they end up getting hired for.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha. And then if I remember right, the WAC code is the like Washington admin code.
sure, that sounds right.
Ah, I
All these
remember it
acronyms.
from working at WSU. There was all kinds of things that we had to deal with as well. So that's
Yeah.
uh, yeah, yeah. So I think that's all the questions that I had kind of lined up for today. It's your business just sounds incredible. You sound like an incredible business owner. Like this
Oh,
has been
thank you.
an absolute joy to kind of dig in and listen. For those who are in the chat, go ahead and feel free to drop any questions that you might have. I think there were a couple that I might scroll through here and see. Um, um, yeah, we covered a lot of these. Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, no, I think we covered most everything. So I think we're good for today.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for joining us today and for being willing to share openly. It is really vulnerable to share and to and do it publicly. Like it's
Yeah.
always a little bit scary to do. But thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and then following up in November, we'll be having the owners of Black Cypress come in. I believe we're uh, December is still a little bit tentative, but we're getting that scheduled. We'll have to see what January brings. If we're going to have more restrictions or less restrictions. I know a lot of us are kind of waiting to see what happens after early November
Yeah.
dealings. But I do want to make sure to thank the Southeastern Washington Economic Development Association, SWEDA, for helping to sponsor this today, and for the Small Business Development Center, Aziz Makani, of course, to help promoting and getting things moving, and along with the city. They're always helping promoting from the city and from the library. We're just so grateful and blessed to receive the support we get. This recording will be up in YouTube in probably 3 to 4 days. Zoom takes a little time to transcode, and then we kind of clean it up a little bit on the top and bottom. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming today, and have a wonderful rest of your week.